Hi guys, welcome to the channel. This is What If Goku Was in Fairy Tail. Before we start, remember to like and subscribe to help the channel. Also check the description for the creator of the fanfic. Chapter 29. The Rockstar and the Quiet Killer. The meeting hall of the Magic Council had fallen silent. The threat that was beyond anything that any of them had ever gone up against before. They had lived through years of relative peace with the occasional mild crisis thrown in now and then to spice things up. Now though, the fate of the entire world could rest upon their decision. Before we cast our vote, I feel there is one more thing that you all must be aware of. Seagrain said, his head bowed and voice grave. This tower, I know who is responsible for its creation. A decade ago my twin brother was abducted from our family's home and dragged out to sea to serve as a slave. The people within the tower twisted his mind and tortured him to the point that when they fell he actually replaced them. My brother, Jelal, he is the one who is trying to end the world. I tell you this not so you pity me, but so you can truly understand just how dire the situation is. One of the older members let out a heavy sigh and looked out across the room. To find out what has happened to your missing sibling after all this time, only to discover that he has been so corrupted that he intends to resurrect the darkest mage of all time. Despite your words, I can't help but feel sorry for what has happened to you. But if you truly believe that this is the only option and you are willing to sacrifice your family to protect the world, I at least shall stand with you. I vote that we fire Etherian immediately. Jelal stared out the charred hole in his tower where his strongest minion had blasted through. Then he looked at the spiky-haired teen scowling before him with his still steaming fist cocked back at his hip. Then he looked down at the chessboard in front of him and casually flicked one of the pieces onto the floor. Finally he looked back at Goku again and let out a long-suffering sigh. Talk about blowing your load early. You just wasted about half your power right there. If you're going to try and make someone surrender, it's normally a better idea to make sure that you actually have the upper hand. With the little amount of power you have left right now, it'll be more like swatting a bug than an actual fight. If that's the case, why bother talking about it? Swatting a bug isn't satisfying, it's just something you do. If it wasn't an issue, you wouldn't be gloating. But you can't do it, can you? I can sense that you're strong, maybe even stronger than me when I'm fresh, but right now you can't fight at full power, can you? You're projecting about half of your power across the ocean instead. I don't know what you are using it for right now, but if you could bring it back safely right now to beat me, you would. Right now our power levels are about equal and it's all going to come down to who can last longer. And if you really have been studying me, then you should know that I'm pretty darn stubborn. Oh ho ho. Getting a bit cocky, are we? I think you might be underestimating me a bit there. Though now I'm afraid that you have piqued my curiosity. Just how have you managed to tell that I only have half my power? I've been around enough sensors to know that being one isn't enough to see through my technique. So how can you tell? You can blame that on Jose. He tried something very similar when I fought him, caught me completely off guard too. Now that I know what I'm looking for though, it's only really an issue if you manage to bring yourself back up to full power. So all I have to do now is take you down before you can do that. A time limit, huh? Sounds exciting. I hope you don't mind if we spread the tension around a bit, do you? Yes I do mind. Shame about that. Erza snapped her fingers in front of the faces of the rest of the fairy tale girls in an attempt to rouse them from their shocked stupors. It took them a few moments, but eventually the three were able to pick their jaws up off the ground and reboot their speech centers. Dragon. That was a dragon, Levy noted. Big dragon. Really big dragon, Lucy agreed. Kana ignored them both in favor of tentatively putting down a bottle of tequila that she had pulled out while helping to evacuate the builders and slowly stepping away from it. Lucy noticed the relatively calm if somewhat anxious expression on Erza's face and shoved her finger in the redhead's face. Erza, explain now. What the hell was that? Unless I am not very much mistaken, I believe it was Goku. Oh, that makes sense, Lucy nodded. Wait, no it doesn't. Why the hell is Goku here? I have absolutely no idea, I merely saw him break into the top of the tower as I arrived. Must be one hell of a fight if he's throwing around attacks like that up there. Think we should go back him up? Kana asked. I intend to go up there myself. However, given our track record, that will only serve to escalate the collateral damage. If we don't evacuate the tower, a lot of people will die. I know you're trying to do the noble thing and not worry right now, said Levy. But Erza, the last time Goku tried to use a technique like that, it was against Guildarts. Goku's not invincible, he's going to need help. But the rest of the people, Erza, just go. Levy insisted, rolling her eyes and pushing the knight towards the stairs. We'll evacuate the people, no problem. Now get going, there are a lot of stairs between here and the top. Right, thank you. And then Erza was gone in a blur of red. Does anyone else think Erza's acting weird? Kana asked. I mean, I know Erza probably has a lot of experience in needing to think about evacuating people when she levels a town or something. But I would have bet good money that her first priority would be making sure Goku was okay. It's not really that simple. The girls turned to Sho, slowly approaching them. His eyes were turned towards the ground and his arms were wrapped protectively around himself as though to ward off a blow. I think she's afraid of what she's going to find once she gets up there. Two people that she has known and fought alongside before are up there trying to kill each other. When she arrives, who knows what kind of condition they will be in. She already said she isn't sure that she can beat Jelal, and if she can't, then how can anyone else expect to? I feel that I'm missing some backstory here, but I can tell you right now that anyone that Erza can take, Goku can too. The two of them are part of a three-way tie for third strongest mage in Fairy Tail. Whoa. Miliana burst onto the scene with her ears twitching in excitement even as her tail continued to wave the next batch of victims towards the boats. You're serious? That's so cool. Have they fought before? Who do you think is stronger? Kana and Lucy looked at the girl incredulously while Levy adopted an thoughtful expression. Loxus, then Goku, then Erza. Bullshit. Kana quickly jumped in. Erza could kick either one of their asses. And if we dangle some food in front of Goku's face at the start of the fight, then Loxus goes down in 5 seconds. Are you too serious right now? Lucy asked in wide-eyed disbelief. Is this really the time to be debating this? Better now than if we were trying to eat or sleep or study or something. At this point we are basically traffic directors. So it's either mindless banter to ignore the fight to the death above our heads, or we rush up the stairs to join in. Your pick. Kana teased. I'd take Goku over either one of them. He took down an S-class mage and helped blow up a giant monster flute thing in the first hour that I met him. Now you're getting it. No, we just have to wait for everything to wind down up there and everything will be all good. Attention intruders. A massive voice suddenly reverberated through the entire tower. Levy smacked Kana in the back of the head. Way to jinx it. I have been having a complete blast up here so far with this Goku guy, but I feel that the rest of you must be feeling pretty left out down there. I mean, here we are approaching our finale, but most of you haven't even thrown a punch. So I've sent down a couple of my friends to keep you company. They should be arriving any minute now. And as a bonus, I seem to have seriously ticked off the Magical Council. They're planning on firing Etherion. So we all have about 20 minutes before it's all over anyway. So have fun with that. And Erza, I'm waiting for you. Big bang attack. Wait, what? Another blast rocked the tower and tiny showers of debris began to sprinkle down across the small docking area. The three girls ignored the commotion in favor of arming themselves. With cards, golden keys, and scarlet quivers in hand, the girls darted towards the cavern exit as Levy shouted over her shoulder. Make sure that you get everyone out. We'll do a quick sweep to make sure that we didn't miss anybody. Keep the boats ready, we're going to need to book it out of here. Jelal was flat on his back, staring at the ceiling of his personal chamber. He coughed up a lung full of dust from the remains of his throne and sighed. You know, it's considered to be very rude to interrupt someone when they are on a call. You set me on fire. But did I interrupt you when you were trying to talk? Your manners are atrocious. You really were raised in the boonies, weren't you? I really don't like you. Now that's just hurtful. Meteor. Engulfing himself in a blazing golden light, Jelal shot forward like a bullet and decked Goku straight across the room. Rebounding off the wall, Goku launched himself right back into the fight and landed an axe kick that dropped Jelal face first into the ground. The dark mage came up swinging and Goku dodged and weaved around the blows with expert precision. When I get my full powers back, we'll see if you're still this quick on your feet. Maybe someday we can have a rematch when we're both at our bests, but today I'm going to make sure you're too injured to even think about moving long before that ever happens. Haha, we'll see about that, hillbilly. We'll see. The girls had made it all of 5 feet down the hall when a huge feathered figure burst out of a side passage, snagged Levy by the back of her shirt and flew away again. Before Kana and Lucy could even think of reacting, the floor gave out from underneath them and the pair tumbled down into darkness. Lucy shrieked from the sudden fall, only grew even louder when she felt something grab her. Calm down, Lou, it's me. Hold on tight. Kana reached, held up a card and threw it beneath them. Card magic. Inverted fall. Lucy felt herself begin to slow, like a great big pillow of air had built up beneath them, until they finally touched down lightly on the ground. Are we safe? I don't want to open my eyes. Course we are, Lou. Oh, good. Lucy opened her eyes. It didn't make much a difference, everything around was pretty dark. So that card was new. The inverted fall. Not really, I've had it for ages. I've just never used it. I don't really make a habit of falling off of cliffs. Then how did you even know it was going to work? Hey, I'm the card mage, aren't I? I guess so. What would have happened if you'd accidentally thrown it upside down? We would have hit the ground twice as hard. I wish I hadn't asked. Hey Lou, do you hear that? Lucy paused, straining her ears against the silence. Now that Kana mentioned it, she could hear some kind of noise. It was a buzzing, as though something was getting jammed into an electrical socket. It was also gradually getting louder and louder. Oh yeah, time for hell. The scream left the fairies wincing as a trail of lights suddenly ignited, leading up to a stage. A pair of fireworks went off behind it, nearly blinding the girls. On the stage there was a figure that was clearly trying to rock out on his guitar. In reality though, it looked more like he was just jumping up and down and slapping the instrument instead of playing it. IAMVIDALUS Taka. Welcome to hell, my LOVILIES. What? Lucy screamed, her hands pressed against her ears. I said welcome to hell. We can't hear you. Kana yelled. Could you stop trying to murder that guitar for 2 seconds? Okay, fine. But only so I can tell you that I'm sending you to hell. Mercifully the man stopped playing. As the echoes of his music died away, Lucy finally managed to focus on getting a good look at him. Wow, that was a lot of makeup. And hair, seriously, this guy had nicer hair than she did. That just wasn't fair. This guy's an enemy, right? Kana asked, eyeing the man with a sort of vague interest. You better believe it, baby. I'ma send you both straight to hell. Okay, just checking. Levy pulled out a card and threw it at him. The card hit him in the face and discharged a burst of electricity. Oh hell. The man screamed, staggering backwards, his hair standing on end, which, considering how long it was, made him look like some kind of giant fluffy porcupine. Kana, what? Just look at this guy, I guarantee he has some kind of freaky power. The weirder a bad guy looks, the more messed up their powers tend to be. I'm not waiting for him to use it on us. That would be dumb. I mean, yeah, but okay, that earned you a one-way trip to hell. The man screamed, blasting out several chords on his guitar. At the same time, his hair shot forward, wrapping around Kana and pulling her towards him. Lucy tried to pull out a key, but his hair took a swipe at her, knocking her off her feet. She forced herself back up, the sound of Kana's screams spurring her onward. But before she could summon anyone, her friend's scream stopped. Lucy blinked, the man's hair had released Kana and she looked different. Her skin had become milky white like the Rockstar wannabes. Her clothes, okay, they were about as skimpy as her usual outfit, but Kana would never wear that much black leather. Yeah, bitch, I'm gonna send you straight to hell. Kana shouted, banging her head as the man started strangling his guitar again. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Lucy sighed. Okay. Weirdo look equals weirdo power. Got it. Next time listen to Kana and just drop Tauros on his head. Haha, I could have just blasted you both with that, but then WHO would be around to entertain me. Okay. My LOVILY, go get her. I wanna see a good old catfight. Clothes flying, hair pulling, and lots of touching. And he's a pervert. Great. I need a bath. Oh yeah, sounds like a hell of a time. Kana screamed, charging at Lucy. Lucy sighed, and raised a key. Sagittarius. Shoot the guy with the guitar. Yes ma'am. The man in the horse costume appeared and launched several arrows in quick succession. Oh hell no, bitch. Card magic. Bullseye. A red dot materialized in the air above Kana, and the arrows did an about face, slamming through the dot and nearly hitting Sagittarius. Oh dear. I believe I missed. Take this, bitch. Kana tackled Lucy to the ground and started tearing at her clothes. Oh come on, Kana. This outfit was expensive. Sagittarius, shoot the guy. Lucy shouted, pushing upwards and rolling so Kana was the one on bottom. She just needed to keep Kana busy until guitar guy was down. That would probably break the spell. If not, she could just trap Kana in horologium or something until it wore off. Yes ma'am. There was the twanging of the bowstring. Ma'am, he appears to be catching my arrows with his hair. Oh, course he is. Lucy muttered, recoiling as Kana tried to bite her. The brainwashed girl seemed to be following the musician's commands to the letter. She was more concerned in making the fight look hot than actually winning. Otherwise the cards would come out and Lucy held no illusion that she could win if Kana went all out. Haha, you aren't going to beat me like that, girly. My hair can stop anything. Ma'am, he has now wrapped me in his hair. He is also crushing me. What should I do? Just go home. I'll think of something else. Lucy yelped, wincing as Kana wrapped a fistful of her hair and yanked. Kana, stop. You don't want to do this. Lucy whined. Bitch, I'm gonna rip all your clothes off and spank you straight into hell. Oh yeah, this is getting hot as hell. The man started banging his head and wailing on his guitar again, as if she didn't have enough problems. Who could she use? Taurus. No, he'd probably just join Rocker Guy in enjoying the show. Leo. No, he was still recovering from his near-death experience. Oh, wait, duh. Cancer. Magical scissors should wrap up this fight fairly quickly. Now if only Kana could stop groping her for 5 seconds so she could grab the key. Kana managed to get the upper hand and tossed Lucy down. With a running leap she crashed on top of the blonde, pinning Lucy's arms to her the ground. Kana's pale face loomed over Lucy's, grinning manically. Give it up, bitch. I'm gonna make you beg for mercy. Hell yeah, girl. Give it to her, and then I'll make her my slave too and we'll rock our way straight to hell. With her arms and legs pinned, Lucy could do nothing but struggle uselessly as Kana pumped herself up for the final blow. She had no tricks and no options. Without some sort of immediate distraction the fight was over. Any last words, bitch? Kana grinned, her face hovering over Lucy's. Lucy shoved her face forward, locking her lips against Kana's. Kana froze, her face going blank. Oh hell yes. The guitar guy muttered. Lucy took advantage of the sudden slackness in Kana's body to throw her off. Grabbing the key she screamed. Gate of the Crab. Cancer. The crab materialized in a burst of starlight. Yes, Lucy. Snip and clip. Lucy shouted, jabbing her finger at the guitar guy. Shrimp. The crab shot forward, his scissors opening and shutting like a promise of doom. Vidalis snapped out of his stupor and rallied his hair, only for it to be cut to ribbons in the crab's wake. There was a brilliant flash of light, and guitar guy fell to the ground, his head as shiny and smooth as a baby's bottom. He wriggled helplessly, foaming at the mouth, and went still. There was a second flash of light from Kana, her clothes going back to normal as color returned to her skin. Ugh, Lou, what happened? I feel like I have the worst hangover right now. I don't even get those. Kana groaned, clutching at her head. She opened her eyes and glanced around. Oh hey, did we win? Yeah, we did, Lucy replied, not trusting herself to say anything else. Cool. Kana took a closer look at her friend. Say Lou, you don't look so good, your clothes are all torn up and your lips are all red. What happened while I was out? Nothing happened. Are you sure? I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad look for you, but you look kind of rattled. What did that guy do? Nothing happened, Lucy insisted, her face turning red as a tomato. Absolutely nothing. Aren't you supposed to be an owl, you jerk? Why the hell are you using a jetpack? Levy screamed as she was dragged through the tower. Who? Was her response. Levy let out a low groan. Why did she always have to fight the people with weird animal obsessions? Alright, no, this is so not happening. Levy brought her pen up, quickly analyzed their flight path, and then unleashed a spell with a flourish of the feather quill. The magic flew in front of them a few dozen feet before it exploded outwards to spell the word malfunction. The moment the pair passed through the field, the jetpack cut short as a shower of sparks began to form up and down its length. With a loud screech, the owl man dropped Levy and began flailing around at his back in a desperate attempt to rip the rocket from his back. He managed to get free just as the jetpack propelled itself straight into one of the tower walls, where it exploded in a ball of flame. The assassin managed to twist himself around in the air so ride the shockwaves to the ground before turning to see Levy standing below him determinedly with her pen glowing crimson in her hand. I can honestly say that I never expected to have to use this when I was on my vacation. But I'm on a bit of a time limit here, so I don't really have any other options at the moment. Sorry about this. Primal scripture. Awaken. The massive phoenix surged from her hand and ignited the air as it blazed towards the owlman. He cocked his head to the side as the attack approached before he simply leapt straight up into the air over the attack. The firebird continued onwards until it crashed into the steel wall and splashed out as a massive wave of flames that consumed half of the room. Levy shielded her eyes from the blinding light as she tried to look through the smoke and flames for her target. As her eyes gradually adjusted, she could see the man standing uninjured directly across from her with his back to the flame. The light from the blaze cast his entire body in a shadow that covered all his features. Levy was left facing what looked like the hollow outline of a man, a monster straight out of a children's book. "I am Fukuro of Trinity Raven." A deep voice reverberated through the room. "I am a warrior of justice, and for breaking the rules of this place you shall die." Rules? What rule would that be then? Did I forget to wipe my feet before I stepped into your Tower of Doom? You went over the authorized speed limit in a no-wake zone. The penalty is death. Okay. This is just so not fair, Levy groaned. I came on this dumb vacation to get away from all the constant nonsense going on around my guild. I just finished a great big war, then I got to spend a few fun weeks trying to keep my friends calm while we rebuilt the guild hall. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get my friends to build something instead of breaking it? It goes against their every instinct as fairies. Then, I hear I get to spend a week at a beach resort and I couldn't pack fast enough. It was great for all of 6 hours, and next thing I know there's some owl man yelling at me about water speed limits when a space satellite is currently flying around somewhere to nuke this place, and consequently, me. I just wasted my trump card because, quite understandably, I'm in a hurry. And now I'm fighting an assassin who got notoriety for eating everyone that was an actual threat to him. I am so done. Just come at me already. Levy held her quill at the ready. Hoo-hoo, he exclaimed, creepily rotating his owl head until it was almost upside down. You know who I am. You have a wanted poster, I can read. Maybe if you had an iota of stealth like a real owl you wouldn't have your poster plastered up all over the place. With a furious hoot, Fukuro darted forward and buried his fist into Levy's gut. The blow lifted her off her feet and he followed through with a high kick that slammed into her stomach. He silently watched her roll across the ground with his hands on his hips. Justice is unstoppable, he exclaimed, nodding in approval. No villain escapes it, whether they are brawlers or blasters or brains, they all go down. Who? Hate you? Cough cough, hate you lots. Of course you hate me. Filthy rule breakers always hate it when they are held accountable for your crimes. Fukuro cheered as he reached down to lift the girl up by her hair. As his hand closed, Levy's own shot out and wrapped around his wrist with surprising strength. With a hard jolt, the girl pulled the mutant in range of a massive uppercut that sent him spinning end over end across the room. The brunette rose to her feet with the glowing word of strength fading from her arm, the magic already exhausted. Okay. Just like you practiced. She murmured to herself. Brief bursts of action, save power where you can, finish as soon as possible. Alright. Wiping bit of blood that had pooled away from the corner of her mouth, Levy drew her pen and stared across the room towards the dying flames that still shrouded most of the room in fumes. Come at me. Like a wraith he burst from the flames with streamers of smoke still billowing around him. A flick of her wrist had the word speed appear on each calf, and then she was moving, blurring herself just out of range of the first attack even as the magic was already fading. Fireball was next but was easily batted to the side by the assassin as he charged, and once again Levy was forced to launch herself out of range. Ice was next, followed by stone and wind. After that first moment of surprise though, Fukuro was fighting more cautiously, analyzing her moves even as she analyzed his, and the two were locked in a hit-and-run fight around the smoldering chamber. Both of them came to the same conclusion fairly quickly at almost the exact same moment. Levy did not have the stamina, the speed, nor the power output to win. Minutes later, when she noticed that she wasn't as injured as she should have been and was struck by a second realization. Fukuro liked to play with his food. Throughout the battle, despite her best efforts, she was still racking up injuries. Dodging just a second too late, reacting just a moment too soon, and trying to charge up for just that extra half second. Each and every error earned her a new wound, yet not a single one was as damaging as the initial exchange. He had not gone for a single crippling attack since the beginning. Instead, she was experiencing death by 1,000 cuts firsthand, and she was desperately racking her brain for a solution. The fight had already eaten up more than half of her allotted time before the blast would hit, and if she wanted to be able to escape in time, the fight needed to end now. For some reason though, every single one of her attempts to find a solution sent her brain towards one person. Natsu. Erg. Stop it, brain. I can't fight like Natsu, we are literally exact opposites. Right now this guy is fighting far more like Natsu than I. Right. Okay. How does a weaker opponent usually beat Natsu? Ego. Piss him off, then watch him beat himself. How the hell are you supposed to be one of the best assassins on the planet? She gasps out. In terms of raw power, I'm the single weakest member of my guild that's here right now. If you can't even take me out, how are you planning on beating Erza or Goku? I bet either one of them could wipe the floor with you in under a minute. You're a one-trick pony and I blew up the only thing that makes you special. Good job, brain. That should do it. Then Fukuro kicked her so hard in the stomach that just for a moment she thought that she could feel his heel tickling her spine. She watched in what felt like slow motion as a blot of blood escaped her lips and landed squarely on the assassin's chest. The man looked down curiously at the splotch of red and dabbed at it with his finger. After sniffing it like a connoisseur would an eloquent dish, he gingerly brought the sample to his lips and gave it a slow lick. Ho-hoo. He chuckled darkly. That is hardly a difficult challenge for the forces of justice to overcome. Once I devour you, your power will become my power. Then I'll go consume those other two girls for good measure and your friends upstairs will stand no chance. If they even survive that long to begin with, that is. Villains like you don't last long once the brilliant powers of justice are shined upon them. You taste so sweet already. This shall be a nice treat for the hero saving the day. Levy shuddered as the man's jaw unhinged and stretched out to a ridiculous size, easily enough to swallow her up in a single bite. The man's meaty hand closed around her throat and pulled her closer to his maw as Levy raised her pen once more. Glue bomb. Point blank. Dodging was never even a possibility. Fukuro gagged in surprise as his mouth was suddenly filled with glue. He gnashed his beak helplessly and tried to pull at the substance with his hand, but his mouth was completely filled, only to get his hand stuck in it as well. He dropped her to the ground and fell to his knees, hopelessly gagging as clutched at his throat. If he calmed down enough, he would have eventually realized that only his mouth was filled, that he could still somewhat breathe through his nose. Levy made sure he never had the opportunity. With blurry eyes, the girl dragged herself up to her knees and reached out with her pen for the last time. She had just enough focus to write the word through what she assumed to be a concussion and placed it right on his forehead. Lightning. Fukuro screamed in pain as arcs of electricity danced across his body before he tumbled backwards in a twitching heap. Breathing a sigh of relief, Levy finally allowed her consciousness to fade away. Her body was completely spent and she had no power left. She'd just have to trust her friends to save her instead. Erza reequipped the flight armor the moment the announcement had finished. Despite her best efforts though, traveling up a 100-story building without a direct path straight up the tower still burned through around 15 of her allotted 20 minutes to try and reach the top of the tower. The entire way up she was running through dozens of scenarios in a hopeless attempt to try and prepare herself for what she might see when she finally arrived at the top. Some of these visions were hopeful. Goku would be standing there uninjured with an unconscious Jelal over his shoulder and would help her hop up onto the Nimbus so they could escape long before the blast arrived. Some were the complete opposite. Jelal would meet her at the door with his hands soaked in blood and Goku's mutilated body lying in pieces behind him. Every time that kind of image popped into her head, she would ruthlessly stomp it down and refuse to acknowledge it again. No matter how much she tried to prepare herself, she was almost positive that Goku would find some insane way to surprise her the moment she tried to enter the fray. When she finally reached the door into the command chamber, she paused and quickly racked her brain as to her best armor option to enter with. She had been so focused on what was going on during the ride up that she had never even considered what she herself would do. After a moment of hesitation, she decided to go for broke. The massive spiked blade of the purgatory armor made short work of the door, reducing it down to nothing more than a pile of splinters with a casual swing. She marched into the room with her blade held one-handed by her side. For all intents and purposes, the room had been completely annihilated. The side of the room was covered in cooling melted metal from Goku's insane attack, every surface was littered with blast marks and almost every single piece of furniture lay in ruin. The only thing intact in the entire room that she could see was an old chess set on a table beside what looked like the remains of a throne. None of that truly caught her attention, however. Instead, her eyes were immediately drawn to a very familiar pole lying on the ground in pieces. "Hi Erza. Heads up." Bump. Erza's eyes snapped across the room to see a pained-looking Jelal flying straight at her out of nowhere. Unconsciously falling in step with Goku's shout, she swung her free hand into a devastating uppercut that knocked her old best friend back across the room towards the ceiling. Set. Goku appeared spinning in midair just a few feet above where Jelal was set to hit the far wall and allowed gravity to start pulling him back down. He rotated once, twice, before the heel of his foot came down into a bone-crushing axe kick that slammed right into the back of the Dark Mage's head. Spike. Jelal hit the ground hard and moaned slightly as he tried to get back up to his feet. Goku was on him before he had time to recover, lifting him straight off the ground by his shirt and slamming him up against the wall. Goku watched the man for a moment as his head rolled back, then turned his head towards Erza with a little grin. "You're even later than you were last time, Erza. If you want to get a good fight in, you have to be faster than that." It took Erza a few moments to actually process his words. Both Goku and Jelal were battered and bruised, their clothes were torn and spots of blood covered each, to the point that it was impossible to tell who was actually worse off. Right. I shall endeavor to be faster the next time. She tried to joke. She even managed a bit of a smile. Good. 'Cause at the rate we've been going lately, I haven't had time to do any big eating lately. In fact, ARRRRGGHHH. You should really do a better job paying attention. Jelal snarled. His hand was wrapped tightly around Goku's throat, injecting a strange pattern of glowing red lines straight into his skin. The magical tattoo wrapped itself all the way around Goku's body, triggering each and every nerve ending that he had until he collapsed to the ground, twitching in pain. Jelal calmly dusted himself off and turned to look at the Erza's horrified form. There we go, the opening act is all wrapped up. What do you say we move on to the main event? Thanks for listening. If you want the next part of this video, be sure to like, subscribe and comment and hit that bell notification. See you next time.